Nrisimhadeva's appearance day, and we'll start with offering our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu-Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Satarana. So I'll read one verse from the Bhagavad Gita in honor of Lord Nrisimhadeva. This is Bhagavad Gita, chapters 4, Transcendental Knowledge, text number 7. Idahi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanama dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyam. Whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So Prabhupada's purport. Do you have that text, Levangalata Devidasi? Chapter.
Yes, Maharaj. Of course, I have that verse. I already got it. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. Got it.
Wherever there's a decline in religious practice of descendant of Bharata and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Purport. The word Sridhami is significant here. Srijami cannot be used in the sense of creation, because according to the previous verse, there is no creation of the Lord. Since all the forms are eternally existent, therefore Srijami means that the Lord manifests himself as he is. Although the Lord appears on schedule, namely at the end of Dwapara Yuga of the 28th millennium of the 7th Manu, one day of Brahma, he has no obligation to adhere to such rules and regulations, because he is completely free to act in many ways at his will. He therefore appears by his own will whenever there is a predominance of irreligiosity and a disappearance of true religion. Principles of religion are laid down in the Vedas, and any discrepancy in the matter of properly executing the rules of the Vedas makes one irreligious. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that such principles are the laws of God, of the Lord. Only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion. The Vedas are also accepted as originally spoken by the Lord himself to Brahma from within his heart. Therefore, the principles of Dharma or religion are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharmam tu sakshad bhagavat pranitam. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of the Vedas is to establish such principles under the order of the Supreme Lord. The Lord directly orders at the end of the Gita that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto him only and nothing more. The Vedic principles push one towards complete surrender unto him. And whenever such principles are disturbed by the demoniac, the Lord appears. From the Bhagavatam, we understand that Lord Buddha is the incarnation of the Lord, appeared when materialism was rampant. The materialists were using the pretext of the authority of the Vedas. Although there are certain restricted rules and regulations regarding animal sacrifice, particular purposes in the Vedas, people of demoniac tendency still took to animal sacrifice without reference to the Vedic principles. Lord Buddha appeared in order to stop this nonsense, establish the Vedic principles of nonviolence. Therefore, each and every avatar incarnation of the Lord has a particular mission, and they're all described in the revealed scriptures. No one should be accepted as an avatar unless he is referred to by scriptures. It is not a fact that the Lord appears only on Indian soil. He can manifest himself anywhere and everywhere, and whenever he desires to appear. And at each and every incarnation, he speaks as much about religion as can be understood by the particular people under their particular circumstances. But the mission is clear: to lead people to God consciousness and obedience to the principles of religion. Sometimes he descends personally, and sometimes he sends his bona fide representative in the form of his son or servant or himself in some disguised form. The principles of the Bhagavad Gita we've spoken to Arjuna, and for that matter to other highly elevated persons, because he was highly advanced compared to ordinary persons in other parts of the world. 2 + 2 = 4 is a mathematical principle. And that is true in the beginner's arithmetic class, as well as in the advanced class. Still, there are higher and lower mathematics. And all incarnations of the Lord, therefore, the same principles are taught. But they appear to be higher and lower in various circumstances. The higher principles of religion begin with the acceptance of the 4 orders and the 4 statuses of social life, as will be explained later. The whole purpose of the mission of the incarnations is to arouse Krishna consciousness everywhere. Such consciousness is manifest and non-manifest only under different circumstances. So the verse again, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanama dharmasya tadatmanam shridamyaham. Whenever and wherever there's decline in religious practice and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Oma yana tvinandasya gananjana salakaya chaksur militam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha. Today, as I've often mentioned, is the auspicious appearance day of Lord Nrisimhadeva, and it's also the auspicious disappearance day of Hiranyakashipu. So we celebrate both today, an appearance and a disappearance day. Hiranyakashipu was known as Prahlad Maharaj. When he was speaking to his father, what is the best thing that you've learned in school? Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad. And Prahlad Maharaj said, my dear father, the best thing I've learned in school is that you're number 1 fool. Words were Nisadu Manye Asurivarya Dehinam Asatsu Vignigna Dhyama Sakrahat Tat Hitvatma Pitam Hitvatma Katam Avarna Gato Tatsado Manye Suryavarya Dehinam Asats Vigna Dhyama Sakrahat. That my dear Lord, my dear Father, that Tatsado Manye, a person who's actually intelligent, who knows about the eternal, he's not full of anxiety. Tatsado Manye Suryavarya Dehinam Asatsu Satsu Vigna Dhyama Sakrahat Hitvatma Putam Griham Andukupam Kato Ganam Yad Darim Asriyeta. My dear Father, you're a Suryavarya, you're the biggest demon. And indeed, Hiranyakashipu was the biggest demon in the universe. But Prahlad wasn't very impressed by how big a demon his father was. Prahlad Maharaj said, you're a big demon. You more or less think you're in control of the universe. You think you've conquered your senses, but why are you in anxiety? If someone actually has conquered their senses and conquered the universe, then how can they be in anxiety? Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj said, although you're the biggest demon, but it hasn't done you any good. It doesn't matter how big a demon you become, if you're still in anxiety, what's the value of being a big demon? On the other hand, you can be a very small devotee, and if you're actually not in anxiety, if you understand the Sat, the eternal, then you're in a much better position than even the ruler of the entire universe. Now, the difference between Prahlad, who is peaceful, and blissful, pra means intensifier, and lada means bliss. So Prahlad Maharaj was intensely in bliss because he believed in Krishna. On the other hand, Hiranyakashipu, he was doubtful about Krishna's existence. Just like we all have little Hiranyakashipu speaking to us all the time. Maya is more or less a good representative of Hiranyakashipu, or Hiranyakashipu is the personification of the Maya that's pervading, especially in Kali Yuga. Hiranya means gold, so everyone would like some gold. And Kashipu means that gold is generally directed towards some kind of material comfort. Material comfort means freedom from anxiety over death, and therefore everyone's trying to become comfortable, not only by having a nice chair to sit on or a nice couch, or of course, Kashipu means soft bed also, but also some protection. So many locks on the door, so much money in the bank, so many friends, some are very family, is a protection, as it says in the Bhagavatam, that Deha Patya Kalatradishu Atma Saneshva Satsubi Tejam Brahmato Nidanam Pashanapina Pashati. Although it's glorified as romantic or whatever it's glorified, but basically household life is meant for raising, ultimately it's meant in Krishna consciousness to raise nice children to become pure devotees of Krishna. But especially in Kali Yuga, people are not getting married to have nice children raised in Krishna consciousness. They're getting married as an opportunity to create a kingdom where they're the king or the queen, and in that kingdom, they're being protected by their fallible soldiers. Their wife, their husband, their children, the animals, especially the dog, they're all meant to become soldiers, protect one from inevitable death. But as we can see, no matter how big our kingdoms, no matter how big kingdoms were in the past, the king or the queen and all the soldiers, ultimately, they were not protected because there is no protection externally or materially in this world. There may be temporary protection, as Prahlad Maharaj himself has said, when he was speaking to his classmates, that yes, Kumara, that from the, what was that verse that Prahlad Maharaj said that the parents, they may try to protect their children. The boat or the medicine may try to cure the sick patient. The boat may try and cross the water. But ultimately, if Krishna decides that the child is going to die, that Bala, what is the first word for that verse? Something about Bala. Bala means child. In any case, if Krishna decides that the child will die, it doesn't matter how much the parents try to take care of the child, he still dies. No matter how nice the medicine or the doctor is, still, if Krishna decides the patient will die. It doesn't matter how strong the boat is if Krishna decides it's going to sink. On the other hand, even if the child grows up, and even if the medicine is effective and the patient is cured, that even if the boat crosses safely across the ocean or the river, still everyone dies anyhow. We may die today, we may die tomorrow, but ultimately no one stays in their body forever. Therefore, the only real protection, ultimate protection, is spiritual protection. If we come to the spiritual platform, then we exist in a world of eternity. And therefore, leaving the body is just like, as Krishna says, the samsi jarnani yata vihaya, avani grinati naro prani, yata sharirani vihara charnan, inani samyati navani dehi. Just like a person puts on new garments, taking off the old and useless ones, so the soul takes off one body and again puts on another one. If we come to that platform of realization, then we won't be disturbed even at the time of death. It'll just like taking one, just like most people who are sane, when they take off their pajamas in the morning, they're not disturbed that they're putting on another kind of clothing on, because they don't think they're their pajamas. Or when they take off their clothing at night, they're not disturbed that they have to take off their clothing, because they know they're not their clothing. So similarly, when we actually realize that we're eternal, we won't be disturbed at time when we have to leave this body and hopefully appear in another world in our spiritual body, at least joining in Krishna's pastimes in some other universe. But as long as we're in the bodily concept of life, then we're making so many arrangements in order to protect this body. Now, for a devotee, making arrangements to protect the body is just not natural, because we're trying to utilize the body in Krishna service, and we want to come to a level of Krishna consciousness, and the fact that we could become as advanced as possible in this lifetime. So to maintain the body is necessary for our spiritual advancement. But Prahlad Maharaj was saying, my dear father, that you think the whole purpose of life is to maintain your body, to become as comfortable as possible, as secure as possible. As a matter of fact, you put yourself into so much inconvenience in order to become convenient, to get some comfort. You put yourself in a situation that for 120 years of the demigods, you stood on the tip of your toes, with your arms outraised. And at that time, the ants, the moths, and other insects ate your body. And so you had nothing left but bones. As a matter of fact, as I said before, he didn't have any brain left either. They ate the brain also. Otherwise, why would anyone who had a brain put themselves into such a position? So Hiranyakashipu went through great inconvenience in order to find himself in a position where he'd be comfortable. But in spite of that, Prahlad Maharaj noted that he was still in anxiety. He still was not happy. Therefore, he suggested to Hiranyakashipu that you go to Vrindavan and take up the process of Krishna consciousness. But Hiranyakashipu was obviously an asura. Even if the example is given, if you give a snake a nice banana and some milk, he will not appreciate it. My dear sadhu, you're so kind. You've given me milk. I should become a vegetarian. Milk is so nice. I think I'll stop eating animals and other insects, and I'll just take milk and banana from now on. No, the snake will not appreciate the prasad offered to him. As a matter of fact, the banana and the milk will simply increase its poison. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj gave Hiranyakashipu good instruction, but Hiranyakashipu simply became envious because he was a convinced asura. So what is this conviction? Conviction means that he believed that there was no God, or that he was God. So this is normal nowadays. You ask anyone who they really think is God, who they think is the center of the universe, who they think is the most important person in the universe, do you think anyone's going to say Krishna? Everyone believes that they're the most important person in the universe. Not they think they're the most important person in the universe. They think their body or their mind is the most important person or thing in the universe. And therefore they're convinced that if I serve my body nicely, and even if it is temporary, even if I have to leave my body, still the maximum happiness I can get in this world, the maximum security I can get in this world, the maximum achievement I can accomplish in this world to serve my body. What happens afterward, I don't know. But at least now I've dedicated my life fully in the service of my body and my mind. And ultimately, beyond that, my false ego. So Hiranyakashipu, he could not tolerate that his little son, 5 years old, was insulting him, saying that he wasn't God. All the other demigods in the universe, they were all bowing down to him, offering him service. Big demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, they were all his servants. And his little 5-year-old boy was defying him, telling him that he wasn't God and that there was another God besides him. So that was completely unacceptable. Just like most devotees, if they go home to their parents and they tell their parents that they're now worshiping God, Krishna, they'll become very disturbed. What do you mean? We brought you into this world not to worship God, but to take care of us. What are you doing? We're getting old. You're supposed to protect us. You're supposed to maintain us. We did that when you were younger, so that when we grow old, you can protect and maintain us. You rascal. You think there's something higher than us? So that's the problem in the material world. Everyone thinks that they're the center of existence, and they have relationships with others, especially family members, with the idea that they respect that position and dedicate their lives not only to their personal bodily comfort, but to the bodily comfort of their family members. Now, Prahlad Maharaj claimed that there is a God besides Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu became very upset and said, "Where's your God?" Now that's the problem, is that they think God is so, that's not only their problem, but it's everyone's problem. We think God is so cheap that somehow or another we can call him and he'll come. Like Hiranyakashipu thought, all right, if God is everywhere as you're claiming, is he in the pillar? Now Hiranyakashipu was strong enough to hit the pillar and Lord Nrisimhadeva was kind enough to appear from the pillar. But we all have a problem. Do we actually believe that God is everywhere? Do we actually live life in such a way that at every moment we're seeing Krishna everywhere? Like Prahlad Maharaj could. So there's a qualification to actually be a devotee, a Mahabhagavat, to actually see God everywhere. Premanjana charita bhakti lo trinena santaksadaiva hridayeshu valank Valokayanti. Yam Shaima Sundaram Achintya Guru Swarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamahang Bhujami. To see Krishna in our heart, to see him everywhere, requires some qualification. Just like, for instance, before we come into the temple, there is some qualification that's required. We're supposed to take off our shoes. Little qualification. Now, if someone is not willing to follow that qualification, generally speaking, they're not allowed into the temple. Similarly, to see any important person, the president of a country, a king, or whatever, requires qualification. Not that you go up to the White House and you knock on the door and they say, who's there? And you say, it's local guru. Really? Who's local guru? It's me. A Bulgarian devotee. I've come to see the president. Really, do you have an invitation? I don't need an invitation. I am who I am. Let me in. Now, it's very unlikely you're going to go by that qualification, be able to see the President of the United States. What to speak of the person who's the president of all the universe's spiritual material? It's not so easy to see him just by making a demand to see him. So that demand is bhakti, is love. So, but love is a development. It's not, one doesn't simply by one's will develop love. It's actually a reciprocation between Krishna and the devotee. Now we have a tendency to love, and that tendency to love is manifest in whatever body we get. Prabhupada gives the example that generally speaking, even a lion loves its cubs. That love and affection is there. If we see a cockroach, now most of the time we don't like seeing cockroaches. At least I never really appreciated cockroaches very much. But if you see a little baby cockroach, you'll see they're actually quite cute. They're quite cute because unless they're cute, even the adult cockroaches wouldn't want to take care of them. But because they're cute, therefore, they're taken care of by the parents. So that tendency to love is there in all the different species of life, but is manifested in different degrees. But to develop that love fully, we have to have full consciousness of Krishna. And that consciousness is developed generally through the process of knowledge, perspective, conviction, skill, and character. At the beginning, we're hearing philosophy. Because like we could tell about the pastime of Hiranyakashipu and Lord Nrisimhadeva and Prahlad Maharaj, etc., etc. Prabhupada, for instance, we find that he did not tell pastimes very much. Pastimes of the what? That's called knowledge. What Hiranyakashipu did, what Lord Nrisimhadeva did, what Prahlad Maharaj did, this is all what? This is necessary to know. I think everyone who comes to the Hare Krishna movement, after at least a year of hearing all the different festivals and holidays, we all know that Hiranyakashipu was an asura, and that Lord Nrisimhadeva was a half man, half lion. Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Lord Hiranyakashipu, etc. So this is all the what? What happened? What did they do, etc. Now, why Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill his son, and why Prahlad Maharaj didn't give up Krishna consciousness, and why Lord Nrisimhadeva appeared, this is called perspective. Seeing things from Krishna's point of view. This we have to develop if we want to advance the Krishna consciousness. not only hear stories, but also understand what the actual meaning is, the why behind them. Now, as we develop the perspective, and we apply it within our lives, we try to take the lessons from what we hear in the whys, and we start doing something, then we develop conviction. Conviction doesn't come just by hearing. It comes from being put into situations which are usually the opposite of what we want. The neophyte devotee thinks, I've come to the Hare Krishna movement, I'm chanting my rounds, whatever they are. If sometimes I even say Krishna when I'm not looking. I even say Hare Krishna, and sometimes I even mean it. I'm actually even sincerely asking Krishna to help me. I actually have some faith that he exists. And I even sometimes think, well, let me chant Hare Krishna in such a way happily and see what happens. Try that experiment for a while. But real conviction comes when we're put into a situation the opposite of what we want, what we think. Just like it's easy to develop love when we're in association with people who are loving. But when we're put into association of people who are not loving, then it's a real test. That's when our real ability to manifest love for Krishna will actually be tested. We all want peace and security, and we can happily chant Hare Krishna when these things are provided to us. But when we're put in a position of stress or distress, insecurity, that's when the real test is whether we're actually going to depend upon Krishna. That's conviction. When that's developed, when the conviction is developed, and in any circumstance, we're actually loyal to Krishna, when we pass one test after another. That's what it says in Bhagavad Gita, that the spiritual master is very kind to the disciple. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. So that comes from tests. Now, all of us, we go through tests all the time. How we see that test depends upon what our knowledge is and what our perspective is. If we have the right understanding, then we can usually have the right mood, because conviction means not only, it's easy to be convinced of something when you're not tested, but our real values, our real motivations, our real convictions are tested. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he was tested. His father asked, what's the best thing you've learned in school? He could have said, well, I really like math, but English is my real subject that I get into. No, he had the conviction to challenge even his historic father to try to give him some good information. Now we ourselves, we can imitate Prahlad Maharaj. That's called anakarna and anusarana. So we're not trying to imitate Prahlad Maharaj, but we can take lesson from him, how to remain fixed in Krishna consciousness in spite of whatever ups and downs we go through. That's called conviction. And if we get convinced, just like one time I think I mentioned it, that I was sitting in the garden of Los Angeles in 1974 with Srila Prabhupada and the temple president, Karanda Prabhu. And Srila Prabhupada was talking to us for some time, 45 minutes, an hour or more. And every once in a while, Prabhupada would turn to me and ask me if I was convinced about Krishna consciousness. So of course I said yes, but I didn't really even know what conviction really meant at that time. Conviction is not fanatical, just like a parrot can keep on chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And then if you grab it by its throat, it suddenly forgets to chant the holy name. So we have to develop our values, we have to develop our motivations, we have to develop our ability to pass the tests, to remain fixed and determined in any circumstance. And part of that means to give up this idea that the purpose of my life is to become a good follower of Hiranyakashipu, which means that although I don't remember that I'm actually in the disciple succession of Hiranyakashipu, but actually, practically speaking, everyone in Kali Yuga is in the bona fide disciple succession coming from Hiranyakashipu. Because everyone is interested in two things in Kali Yuga, namely economic development and sense gratification. There's very little interest in Dharma for liberation. So therefore, knowingly or unknowingly, everyone is somewhat attached to the succession of Hiranyakashipu. As a matter of fact, our parents, usually, they very faithfully repeated his message. My dear son, my dear daughter, please go to school, become a faithful student, like Marka and Sunanda wanted Prahlad Maharaj to become a faithful student and learn the real principles of life, how to make money and enjoy life, enjoy the senses. So this is direct teachings of Hiranyakashipu. And then somehow or another, we ourselves have appeared as partial incarnations of Prahlad Maharaj. And some of us had the nerve to challenge the absolute teachings of our parents and our teachers and the newspapers and our employees and everyone else in the world. And we say, wait a second. You're teaching me that I should become happy by gratifying my senses and making money to do it, but I find myself not so happy. But I've learned that there's actually God and it's not you. What do you mean it's not me? Where's your God? Well, he's in the holy name. Chant the holy name and maybe it'll appear to you. No, I'm not going to chant your rubbish name. So most of our former authorities, many of them will not be willing at this time to chant the holy name, but they'll challenge, where is your God? Why did you become a vegetarian? Why are you putting on that strange dress? What's that funny thing on your face? Some bird, give you some donation. Where did you get those marks, that funny thing on your face? So they'll challenge like that. But we can tell them in action, my dear sir, my dear madam, you'll also see God like Hiranyakashipu, but you'll see God at the time of death. You're claiming you're independent. You're not under anyone's jurisdiction. You're free to do whatever we want, but you're not free not to die. You're not free not to grow old. You're not free not to become diseased. And whether you like it or not, you're not free to not take birth again. So you're claiming that you're God or that someone else is God, but there's no God. Why is material nature forcing you to do all these things? So at least admit that time is God. At least surrender to time and do something valuable with your time. So Hiranyakashipu wouldn't accept Prahlad Maharaj's statement, but ultimately Lord Nrisimhadeva appeared to show Hiranyakashipu that you think you're God, but with a little flick of my nails, your godhood is over. So when the real God comes in the form of death, all the asuras become aware that they're actually not the supreme. Now, Hiranyakashipu, he didn't know that Lord Nrisimhadeva was actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, he had to take birth again as Ravana. And his fellow demon Hiranyaksha had to take birth as Kumbhakarna, or vice versa. I forget, they switched roles. And again, Lord Ramachandra had to come and kill them again. And then they took birth as Shishupal and Dantavakra. And again, Krishna had to come and kill them. They were very slow at learning their lesson. But we're also a little slow because we've been around here for a while too. We may say, oh, look at these ridiculous people. They can't learn the lesson. God personally is coming and killing them. And they still won't give up the idea that they're God. Well, we're also taking birth again and again. And although we're on the path of accepting Krishna, hopefully at the time of death, we'll actually accept Krishna before that. And so we don't have to go through the same lesson again and again. That God is actually everywhere. It's not that God is only in the temple, and then outside the temple, it's mine. It's my family. It's my house. It's my body. You can have my house, you can have my family. Don't take my body. Don't touch my body. It's mine. It's my thoughts. I can think whatever I want. It's my false ego. Don't touch my false ego. Whatever you do, careful. So we have to learn the same lessons that Hiranyakashipu, Shishupal, Ravana have to learn. But we're on the path at least, accepting Lord Nrisimhadeva, accepting Lord Ramachandra, accepting Krishna, accepting his incarnations, accepting his representatives, and gradually learning our lesson by utilizing everything we can, everything which was under our influence in Krishna's service. And then one day, like Prahlad Maharaj, we'll be able to see Krishna everywhere. If we develop the knowledge by hearing nicely, if we develop the perspective by assimilating this knowledge and seeing from Krishna's point of view, if we become convinced so that in any circumstance we remain in Krishna consciousness, like Prahlad Maharaj, then we can develop the skills to not only become conscious of Krishna by developing our loving reciprocation with Krishna and his devotees and with the innocent. By developing these skills, we can develop the character of a pure devotee. We can become a perfect instrument for Krishna, and therefore, even in this lifetime, see how everything we're doing, everything we're thinking, everything we're feeling is in direct relation with Krishna. And therefore, we're acting as a perfect instrument for Krishna, and therefore, not as a subordinate to the material energy in the form of our body, our mind, our intelligence, or even our false ego. We'll simply be situated in loving relation with Krishna and his devotees, and therefore make our lives perfect, have perfect character. Whatever we'll do, will be meant to help ourselves and others become Krishna conscious, as a perfect example. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Nitya Seva, Devi Das.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances, all Guru Prabhupada. I have question, but not related to the class, but one pastime of Krishna.
Okay, let's see if it...
No, Gurudev, this one where Lord Brahma stole the cows and cowhead boys of Krishna because he wasn't convinced that this little boy is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But I was just thinking that the demigods, they are the servants of Krishna, and Krishna has given them duties to do this. Every demigod has certain duty to perform. But then I was just thinking, how is it possible for them to not no, because they must have, obviously they must have seen Krishna. It's not like that, and um because they are the direct like servants of the Lord who have been assigned certain duties. Yeah, I mean, this is another thing. If they, if they were covered by the Yog Maya, and just because the Lord wanted to perform this pastime, uh, but this is a little bit confusing for me, that why Lord Brahma couldn't understand that it's Krishna who is the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
Because yes, Lord Vishnu with 4 hands, but Krishna is with 2 hands. They must have,
I understand.
they must know, Krishna is the Lord.
Or they must know. Just like you have little deities according to Thai, right? So do you know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead? No.
Yeah, they are not idols. They are they are God.
You're with them, you're every time you're in your house, you're conscious.
I cannot hear you.
Can everyone else hear me? So are you conscious all the time that you're a Gaura servant, and that everything you do, everything you think, everything you feel is only to please them?
Trying to be.
Yes. So Lord Brahma is also trying to be. Maybe more advanced than we are, surely more advanced than we are. But he's not 100% convinced that Krishna is God either. At least not at that time. Otherwise, he would have been a pure devotee. It's like we go, and we know they're God, but we don't always have the right mood in relation to them. Therefore, we may commit offenses at times. Through Goswami, in the Nectar of Devotion, he outlines 64 offenses against the deities. Why is that? Because pure devotees, there's a tendency to commit offense. The Lord Brahma, he committed an offense.
Okay.
But he's the most elevated person in the universe. So if he can commit an offense, what does he? We have to know what the offenses are and try to avoid them.
Okay, thank you.
Maharaj, may I ask a question? Hare Krishna. Maharaj, so you were speaking about people who are, puffed up and things like that. But sometimes in the life of a devotee is so humble and they think, oh, why would God have to deal with me? And the question becomes not that Krishna is God or not, but whether he is available to me or not. So what do you say to the devotees who has lost the faith based on their critical feeling towards themselves, and they think that the Lord is not available to them because they're so little and insignificant?
Well, as one devotee once told Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. And Prabhupada's response was, you're not the most anything. Another one said, Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. And then Prabhupada said, if you're the most fallen, why don't you do something about it? So this idea that I'm so humble that I don't want to serve Krishna, that's another phase of Maya. Yes, we're insignificant, it's true. But then Krishna is so significant that he can reveal himself fully even to the most insignificant jiva soul. He can have a complete, unlimited relationship even with the tiniest soul. So that's Krishna's greatness. So if you doubt that, then you're just simply doubting how great Krishna is, that's all. We're minimizing Krishna. In our humility, we're actually minimizing God. But that's not real humility. Real humility comes about when we realize how wonderful Krishna is. And in comparison, then we feel humble. Not that I'm so humble that even God can't take care of me. Even God is not even interested in it. That's not humility. That's kind of like, I'm so special that even God can't deal with me. Does that make sense, Lavangalata Devidasi?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you very much.
Okay, I think we'll stop there. Thank you all. Thank you, Lavangalata Devidasi, for translating. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Dev ki jai.
Jai.
Mahahotsav. Shinga Chaturdasi ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you. Thank you.